This is going to be my preview for the Ravens offense going up against the Steelers defense that really hasn't played to the standard yet that I would hold for a Steelers defense with all of the things they've done over the years defensively, either against the Ravens specifically or just overall. It's kind of surprising to see what they've turned into in some cases. Now they do have 13 team sacks, and that could be an issue in this game against the Ravens with Ronnie Stanley. Apparently he's going to come back and play, but Morgan Moses will be out. Patrick McCarry, Daniel Falele over there dealing with TJ Watt. Neither one of those sounds like a great matchup in our favor as Ravens fans. So from the Steelers' perspective, maybe this is a get right game for them. And we know that they need to play complementary football to deal with this Ravens team that comes in 3-1, looking to go to 4-1 and 3-0 in the AFC North, with all three of our first games being on the road. But it's going to be a difficult job for the Steelers defense to do, to be honest with you. I mean, they're really low in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, 594 rushing yards allowed through 4 games, 4.7 per carry. Really shocking, if you ask me, especially when taken in light of the fact that I believe the Steelers are only better than 8 other teams in the NFL right now in terms of overall passing yards allowed. Now, their completion percentage allowed is low. It's 59%. And again, they do have 13 sacks, but they've allowed 8 touchdown passes through 4 games, along with 4 interceptions. From a general sense, that just doesn't meet the standard, at least that I have in my mind, for the Steelers defense, even though TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are devastating pass rushers. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a playmaker. They always seem to have a good plan against the Ravens. I'll kind of explain that a little bit more in detail when we're talking about 2022 film. The Todd Monken dynamic, I think, can kind of change a lot of this. It seemed as if the Steelers were able to take away some things that Greg Roman wanted to do each year, whatever those things were. It seemed as if they always had a really astute, prepared game plan defensively for the Ravens offense. That dynamic has changed from a standpoint of Todd Monken is calling the plays, creating the offense, and creating the game plan. So I don't know, has that dynamic swung totally in our favor? Well, we would hope so as Ravens fans. I think it's probably more realistic to say we will catch them off guard with some of the things that we do, particularly if anyone on their staff is operating from the mindset, oh, this is a similar offense to what we've seen before. It's totally different. There's some run schemes that have been kept, a couple of formation tendencies or patterns, but by and large, this is a complete 540 in terms of offensive focus for the Baltimore Ravens in 2023. All right, so I'm going to start the film study or video portion of this, showing some of Lamar Jackson's throws just from week 4 against the Browns. Why? Well, he did play well against the Browns, don't get me wrong, 15 of 19 throwing, but it's because of the poise that he showed against a superior pass rush, which I would say would be similar to what the Steelers are going to bring this week. Watt and Highsmith, being extremely dangerous pass rushers on either side, comparable to Garrett and Zadarius Smith packaged together. And I think the throws that Lamar was able to make under some pressure, under some duress against the Browns, give you an indication of how much more efficient this offense is in the pass game. Are we going to throw for 330 yards a game? No, and I don't think that's the idea. I think this is a spread offense. I've said this from early on in training camp. This is a spread offense, not just from spreading the ball around horizontally from sideline to sideline, but spreading it around by player. When you get the end zone angle of this, you'll see Lamar kind of looking off the safeties. Now, I'm not saying that it was an effective demonstration of looking off the safeties, but this is one thing that defenses have done in the past is keep their eyes on Lamar and where he's looking, where his face mask is. He's clearly looking off screen here, gives a slight pump fake, shoulder fake, kind of helps open up Mark Andrews between the hook player and the curl flat defender, and then in front of the safety in this kind of pseudo cover 3 that the Browns were playing. I think Lamar is more prepared from what the coaches are providing him standpoint. I think he's sharper, number 2, and I think he's having fun. I mean, it certainly looks like he's having fun in some of these throws that he's making. This one in particular, this is a brilliant play that most quarterbacks just can't make because there's pressure in his face on this side. Now, Mark Andrews also is a rare tight end who's winning on what turns out to be like a China out against a starting outside corner in the NFL, a really good one, Greg Newsome. And then Lamar's got one defender on his hip, another one in his face, and is able to throw this ball across his body. It would be no problem for me if someone who has an old school mentality, kind of like myself, said, "Hey, well, that's where he opens himself up for turnovers because he's trying to make plays." No doubt about it. But that applies to 6 or 8 or 10 other quarterbacks in the NFL as well, and most of which have far more turnovers than Lamar does. But just an example, if you ask me, of off-schedule plays by Lamar when there is some pressure, there is some pass rush in his face, and he's able to get something done out of it. Well, in this case, absolutely flip the balance of the play there from a potential sack or maybe even fumble and then into a 36-yard gain by Mark Andrews. This is a beautiful throw on 3rd and 6. If you're a Steelers fan and you're watching, first of all, thank you. But second of all, this is all designed to get Melvin Gordon free on this wheel. And I don't think Gordon's active this week, but I could be wrong. It's a snag wheel concept. The ex-receiver is running the snag, and will be basically running a pick against JOK, who the Ravens clearly targeted in the pass game, and it's a brilliant throw on a 3rd and 6. He had 4 great throws on this drive, and I'm showing them all again because A, it's fun for me to watch, and B, I think it really tells you, the viewer, whether you're a Ravens fan, Steelers fan, or whatever, what Lamar is doing really well right now, which is making 3rd down throws, playing with poise. Yeah, Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers are getting the lion's share of the targets, but Rashad Bateman and OBJ have also been out for a while. So naturally, their statistical targets and catches are going to be suppressed because they haven't played as much as those guys. A great throw from Lamar on this little slot fade out to Nelson Aguilar, who's had a nice start to the season for us. Ends up being incomplete because Aguilar is not able to get a second foot down inbounds, but it's a great throw by Lamar, perfectly placed, perfectly on time. That's the one thing that I would offer to people. I know that there will be people who will talk about the completion percentage and say he's more accurate this year. I can't discount that because the completion percentage is so high. What it does seem to me is he's more on time. And I can't say that in previous years it was his fault. I don't care whose fault it was. But things are happening smoother and on better timing now in terms of the routes, in terms of when the ball is being delivered. I think that plays a role in the completion percentage as well. But look, the last 2 throws that I showed you and the wheel to Melvin Gordon, I mean, neither of those throws could have been more accurate. This ball was thrown. The all-22 view is a little bit misleading sometimes. This ball was thrown in an elevated fashion to get it up there for Andrews, kind of like an alley-oop, perfectly placed by Lamar, just like the Aguilar throw, just like the throw to Melvin Gordon on the wheel against JOK. If you're a Steelers fan and you're watching this and you're thinking that this offense looks similar to you, you really couldn't be more wrong. The Ravens have, I would say Todd Monken's offense in some ways is like jambalaya. It is 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different meals all kind of thrown together, but it's working. And right now, the old answers for what the Steelers used to do, I don't think apply because the Ravens offense isn't asking the same questions. Is Lamar still used as a runner strategically? Of course. And that's a smart usage by Todd Monken, particularly down in the red zone. I don't know that the Ravens offense can be this efficient in the red zone all season, but they certainly are right now. All right, so the first place that I'm going to start in terms of looking at the Steelers defense is last week, and that's primarily the film that I'm going to show, with sprinkling in a little bit of Ravens film to show some similarities between what the Texans did to some of the things the Ravens are doing. I'm going to focus on the first 2 possessions where I think, to be honest with you, I think the Texans really got off and running. I think 12 plays, 72 yards, or 12 plays, 68 yards, touchdown. Actually scored 3 times on the first drive, but only one of them counted. And then the second possession after an interception, a pretty bad interception, I thought. Then the Texans get a field goal, so the Steelers are able to hold. I'm going to show these because I think it displays to you that the run game is clearly a possibility for the Ravens to use this week. But I don't know that it's going to be out of 21 personnel. But these are direct, full flow concepts in some cases. You have a toss play here on the second play of the game, I think. You have the pin, pull, pitch play that I'll show you here in a moment. That's a direct, full flow. It's not like there's a lot of trickery. It's not like there's a counter play here where they're they're fooling the Steelers defense. These are direct, full flow concepts where they're going after the Steelers directly. Containing the quarterback was also an issue 3 times in that game. Now, in this particular instance, you've got Alex Highsmith dropped out because the Texans have gone empty from an irregular personnel grouping. So the Steelers are dropping out the outside linebacker Highsmith to the boundary, using him as part of the coverage element, and then still allowing TJ Watt to try to rush. No contained player to that side. Easy rush for Stroud, who's having a great start to the season. Clearly, the strategy on this may be different for the Steelers. They may choose to emulate what the Texans did. Bring pressure. Make Lamar get rid of the ball fast. It's a dangerous proposition for who we have now. Zay Flowers out there, a guy that you can get the ball on a screen like this, and he can take it to the house. Or Justice Hill, who took 155 yards on a screen last week against the Browns, but didn't count. But this is a screen where they're dropping TJ Watt on a 2nd and 6, still first possession. And look at the setup. There's a lot of things that are surprising me about the Steelers defense. Am I saying I expect them to be this bad all year? No, I certainly don't. I, in fact, think so highly of them historically that I would not be surprised if they right the ship sooner rather than later. And from a Ravens fan's perspective, having seen so many wars over the years with them, 23-17, 19-17, 13-10, our brains, or my brain, is conditioned to expect them to play great defense this afternoon in Pittsburgh in front of their home crowd. Luckily, they're fortunate to be 2-2. I guess I should say, not luckily. They're fortunate to be 2-2. But here we are, first drive. Like I said, they actually end up scoring 3 touchdowns. This is Stroud scrambling up the middle. A little bit of an issue with the interior rush there with Watt getting upfield. Ends up getting called back. They would score again a second time. This one to, I think, Pierce. Little flip screen. Easily gets in, but that one didn't count either. And then finally, on a 3rd down, Bunch B, they're going to get the ball to Nico Collins, off to an amazing start here in 2023. Little play fake, and then Collins just running across the field, kind of like a slant, little in cut, wide open. The Steelers have had trouble covering people and have had trouble in the run game. The sheer volume of yards they've given up, 594 yards in the run game, and then I think over 1,010 passing yards already. You're talking about almost 1,600 yards of offense allowed in the 4 games. Really shocking number for the Steelers. This is a play that I'm going to show you a little bit later, so I'll just talk about it real quick here. Bunch A, pin pull pitch, something that the Ravens run. But look at the seams that are available. If the Ravens can create these running lanes, get the run game going against this team, it sets everything else up. I don't think Monken wants to run the ball 40 times like Greg Roman did, but I do think that establishing the run game opens up everything else in this offense. Look at the second quarter against the Browns. When the run game got going last week is when the Ravens started to hit other pass plays. This is an example of 2 read or palms. Talk about it more here in a little bit, because it's a very specific thing that the Steelers do to their left-hand side of the field. The offense is right against 2 stand-ups, meaning 2 twins that are lined up away from the formation. It's an outcut. It's the exact route combination the Steelers are looking for. C.J. Stroud is able to get rid of the ball quickly before the DB is able to get there. In this case, it's Patrick Peterson. I think you got a 3rd down here. Twin slot A. Pressure by Highsmith. Ball thrown out to Woods. The Ravens are going to have to win some of these balls. Zay Flowers has made plays down the field, but thus far, no one else has. Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay. Nelson Aguilar did have a 17-yard touchdown catch on a slot fade in week 1. I think it was week 1. Or week 2, excuse me. So there are guys who have made plays down the field. We need more of them. If the run game can get going to give Lamar opportunities to be in those run-pass situations, meaning he can either throw the ball if someone's wide open or take off running because it's 2nd and 3, or run our pre-snap RPOs, it puts the Ravens in great position, if you ask me, to hopefully get a lead on this team and maybe make them one-dimensional. So from a Ravens perspective, it certainly looks scary having to deal with TJ Watt with no Morgan Moses being out there. If you don't know, Morgan Moses did a pretty good job in the first 2.5 quarters, really, last year of that game in Baltimore. was able to handle most of the moves that Watt put on him, but Watt kind of hit an extra gear late third quarter and into the fourth quarter, had a tremendous sack as the Ravens possessed the ball with the lead. He just causes problems for us. He just does. And certainly with either Macari or Falele out there, that's a huge point for the Steelers to win and win in overwhelming fashion, potentially. I also expect them to come out with a great game plan, even though Todd Monken's offense has really only been shown 4 games in the regular season. The Steelers always have unique wrinkles to deal with our offense, whether Lamar's on the field or not. One of the things they did last year was they played a 6-2. They played 2 inside linebackers, Mark Robinson, Robert Spillane, and then they had a really unique way of handling Patrick Ricard. Wherever he went, they took a legitimate defensive end. I think Liao is his last name, underrated player, and he went with Ricard. Follow him on this play, 98. I don't give you the end zone angle, but look at what he's doing. When Ricard goes in motion, he's literally going with him. He's playing man on Ricard, and then when he realizes it's run, he's going to come back here and fold inside and get involved in the play. That's an extremely unique thing to teach in the NFL in a 1-week period. I mean, they were able to teach it, but it's not done that often. Clearly, the Ravens' offense last year was an outlier with Rashad Bateman out for the year at one point, Lamar Jackson out at this point. Didn't have J.K. Dobbins for most of the year. Gus Edwards dealing with injuries, so there was, clearly a unique element to the Ravens' offense, and it required unique solutions, and the Steelers came up with them once again. Late in the game, T.J. Watt had his moments where he, took away options for us or just got after the passer. He's an underrated guy dropping out in the flats. He's always going to be on the left-hand side of the Steelers defense, the right-hand side of the Ravens offense. Seems like we'll have Ronnie Stanley available, so I would guess that we're going to rely on Ronnie one-on-one in most cases to deal with Alex Highsmith, who's also a very dangerous pass rusher. And T.J. Watt against Macari and or Falele, whoever is over there, we would presume we're going to help him out. But he plays at such extreme angles sometimes. He almost likes to be lined up wider. The relentlessness is just amazing. Ravens fans probably hate me praising the guy so much, but he's just an amazing football player. And if you watch the film and you don't recognize it, then you're just not operating in reality. T.J. Watt's going to have an impact in tomorrow's game. It's the Ravens' job, Todd Monken's job, to mitigate it or minimize it, I guess I should say. Because, like I said, Morgan Moses did a nice job up through about mid-late third quarter. T.J. Watt got his first speed rush that kind of worked against Morgan Moses. And then his second one was this one that really changed the game. Second down, Ravens have the ball. Fourth quarter, I believe. Near midfield, 2nd and 8. Now, granted, no one's open on this play. We don't have anyone who's wide open, don't get me wrong. But we don't have a negative play developing if Morgan Moses isn't obliterated by that speed rush. T.J. Watt picked the right time to turn it on. And unfortunately for us, this looks like a matchup tomorrow that he'll be able to turn on immediately if he's dealing with Macari or, God forbid, Falele, who I like Falele. He's a unique talent, great size and strength. But in terms of dealing with T.J. Watt in the pass pro, it's just not a matchup that we're going to win consistently. In the limited amount of time that I've had to kind of really look at the Steelers' defense, I did notice 2 things from the Texans game in Week 4 that I do want to point out. First of all, the Texans on their first possession ran this formation, bunch A, and surprise, surprise, they run pin, pull, pitch out of it to the boundary, which is a little different than the way the Ravens run it, but it's the exact same formation and play concept as the Ravens. The quarterback is opening to the running back, pitching it to him. You got a pin block on the front side. I think it's Nico Collins doing a pretty good job on one of the edge defenders. I'm not sure who. And then you got a pulling tight end and a pulling tackle, same exact way the Ravens do it for the running back to follow around the edge. We got a touchdown in Week 1, J.K. Dobbins out of unbalanced bunch A. Couple of first down conversions, actually multiple first down conversions by Justice Hill so far this year. Same concept. You can expect to see it by the Ravens, but see some of the complementary plays out of it as well that we covered in a bunch video that I did about a week and a half ago that I'll try to link up here. Here's one iteration of it against the Bengals under center, so slightly different from the way the Texans did it. And Morgan Moses, who won't play on Sunday apparently, has got a couple of KOs or knockdowns at least. on this concept because he gets out there and he just lays the wood to people. In this case, I think it happens to be the fantastic nickel defensive back for the Bengals, Mike Hilton. It's just too much size and too much strength to deal with Moses. Another example of it, 3rd and 1 against the Bengals. This one, exact same play, exact same backfield alignment as you saw against the Texans. Bunch A, except it's to the field. And the thing about the Texans doing it to the boundary, I should have covered this a while ago, is it's going to force them to be in a too high safety alignment. Particularly if you do this like out of 21 personnel or 12 personnel or something like that. I think the nickel is still to the field for the Steelers probably because they're anticipating someone to motion across. So they're holding the too high safety alignment, kind of forcing the Steelers' hand into giving up some space to the boundary. Ends up being a pretty big run for Dameon Pierce, who got loose a little bit against that Steelers defense, and he had trouble getting the running game going earlier this season. Okay, so one other element, and I've covered this many times in video form, talking about the Ravens and the Steelers. I feel like you got to cover it, though. A couple of iconic plays by the Steelers is a half-field call defense to read or palms, depending on what system you're familiar with. So basically, you're talking about they're anticipating an out by 2 and a vertical release by 1. So the way that you read it is the safety and the corner both read 2. As soon as 2 breaks out, 1 sticks his foot in the ground and jumps it. And then 2's job is to get over the top of the vertical. Ravens have seen it many times. The Steelers, in my experience and observation, the Steelers play this more so to their left rather than to their right. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it has something to do with quarterbacks being right-handed. Maybe it has something to do with when the Steelers played against the Ravens, and that's most of the film that I watch. But in any case, you can see them running it this past week. 3rd and 3. C.J. Stroud almost falls for it. He gets the ball out quick, though. That's the key here, is he's getting the ball out before Robert Woods has looked for it. And then this corner breaking down on it, putting his foot in the ground, breaking down on it, is just a little bit too late to break up the pass, an instant too late. 3rd and 3 conversion. It's one of the things Stroud is doing very well so far this year is getting the ball out quick. People call it anticipation throws. It's just a read. All right, so, and that's why they call it 2 read. I know that I've shown this play probably half a dozen times in my history as a content creator, but this is an example of 2 read and how it can work. If you get out by 2 and then 1 running the vertical, this is going to be Joe Hayden up here at the top side of the screen. Pick 6 against RG3 in 2020, game that Lamar didn't play. He was out sick. You get an example of the read there and how it can work out. That was early in the game, pick 6 for Hayden. Later in the game, now we still have Marquise Brown up here at the top, tight end down here to the bottom. Trace McSorley recognizes it, but he also had the benefit of time, meaning it had happened earlier in the game. In terms of the interceptions, you got the out by 2 and Marquise Brown running up the sideline. McSorley knows that the coverage they're going to be in. He doesn't even worry about the out, just sticks it to Marquise Brown, takes it to the house for a big touchdown. And you may say, well, Coach, this is filmed from 2020. They certainly don't do this now. Yeah, they do. They've been playing this since 2019 to that side of the field. Not all the time, but usually whenever they get twins to the field, and TJ Watt, who's not on the field on this particular play, is not going to drop out and help out. When he drops out, it's not to read. It'll usually be something where the corner is getting off to a deep third, and that's why TJ Watt is dropping out. This is to read or palms again, and Lamar sees it, but he sees it a little bit too late because he pump fakes to Andrews on the out, and he sees the corner squatting. So he doesn't throw it. He doesn't want to get Andrews KO'd or anything like that. And instead of getting the ball up to Marquise Brown sooner, he's got that pump fake and then throws it late. We do get a defensive pass interference. One of those situations where, for me, I'm like, man, how did we not know that they were a possibility of them playing 2 read, twins to our right, the Steelers left? That's one of the base things they do. That's one of the things that they've always done. It's not on every play. If it's 3rd and 12, they're probably not going to do that. What difference does a 5-yard out make? If it's 1st and 10, it's the type of thing that they'll do more likely or more consistently, I said, more often. Again, it's the corner and the safety both reading 2, and you can see Fitzpatrick is getting slightly flat initially. but he's getting depth, and it allows the corner to basically jump number 2 on the out. The inside linebacker or nickel safety, whatever it is, got to stay inside leverage on 2, basically pushing him, funneling him out to the flats. We were fortunate to get a DPI there. I guess the Steelers were fortunate not to give up a big play. Last iteration of this is from last year to show you how we have attacked it. Very clear example of 2 read or palms by the Panthers at home, I think in week 13, I believe. But this time it's a designed in-cut post by Demarcus Robinson. Lamar sees it. You can see the corner is breaking on the out by Likely. And the safety's getting depth, and Demarcus Robinson crosses his face. Huge play. I thought Robinson played really well that day. I thought Lamar threw some strikes that day. He did have 1 interception, I think, on a deflected ball, but I thought he threw some strikes that day and was just dealing with the football. But this is a play that you'll see, a coverage that you'll see to our right, to the Steelers' defense's left. And if you get a broadcast angle where you can see our twins, then you can kind of anticipate it depending on down and distance, and then maybe that'll help you enjoy the game more, number one, or get more frustrated if we're unable to exploit it. But I'm quite sure that Todd Monken's going to have some stuff in to exploit that coverage because he knows we're going to see it. In summary, the Steelers are a team that I can just never take for granted. There are other fans, and that's no problem if you're already putting this down as a win. I think that's a dangerous mentality to take, and certainly the Ravens coaches and players are not doing so. The Ravens-Steelers rivalry, for me, is always going to be an absolute war, whether it's in Baltimore, whether it's in Pittsburgh, whether it has playoff implications or not. It's always going to be a game that you want to win. Don't get me wrong, the Bengals have clearly been the superior threat, superior team in the AFC North, winning the division the last 2 years. Ravens are off to a great start, having beat them, having beat the Browns. This is going to be a dogfight, in my opinion. I think the Steelers will come in with a great game plan, try to shorten the game, attack us where their perceived strengths are in terms of our defense, which I kind of covered more Saturday morning. Feel free to check that video out if you want. I'll link it up in the description. Turnovers, if you ask me, and big plays. If we can limit turnovers and generate big plays on our offense, the way our defense is playing, we have limited big plays. Now, the Steelers have hit a couple. Calvin Austin had a touchdown catch against Marcus Peters, straight man-to-man, 74 yards, 72 yards, something like that on a third down. George Pickens, we all saw the big touchdown catch that he had against the Cleveland Browns, where the Steelers were fortunate to get 2 defensive touchdowns to pull out the win. If they don't get that long touchdown to Pickens and those 2 defensive touchdowns, clearly they don't get the win there. This is an opportunity for the Ravens to show we're not going to turn the football over, and our defense isn't going to give up big plays. And then all we need now is for the Ravens to generate big plays on offense. I'm not talking about 3 50-yard plays, but at least 3 25-yard plus plays in this game. I think with the way our run game can get going 2 or 3 or 4 possessions each game, because it doesn't need to be a sustained run game, like a Greg Roman run game that carries us from the first possession to the 10th. This run game, if you ask me, when the run game is put together and packaged with the pass game, and the run game is kind of leading the way for 2 or 3 possessions in a row, it opens other things up and really makes this offense dynamic and extremely difficult to stop. You guys let me know what you think of the preview. I tried to make it a little bit abbreviated this morning because I know there's a European football game on, or a game over in England. But appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this preview, this look at the Ravens offense versus the Steelers defense, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.